Oakhaven, a sleepy town in the heart of England, nestled amidst rolling green hills and ancient woodlands. It's a place where time seems to stand still. The cobblestone streets and historic buildings tell tales of a bygone era, where life was simpler and the world moved at a gentler pace. Rolling hills, quaint cottages, a silence you could almost taste. The air here is crisp, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. It's a place where the hustle and bustle of modern life feels like a distant memory. Life moved slowly in Oakhaven, too slowly for some, perhaps. The days blended into one another, marked only by the chime of the church bell and the changing of the seasons. For the residents, this slow pace was both a blessing and a curse. But beneath the surface of normalcy, something strange was brewing. An undercurrent of unease began to ripple through the town like a shadow creeping in the twilight. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew stronger with each passing day. It began with whispers, strange dreams, vivid and unsettling, the kind that lingered long after waking, leaving a residue of fear and confusion. The townsfolk, usually so reserved, began to share their experiences in hushed tones, their voices tinged with worry. The residents, usually so different in their lives, found themselves drawn together by a shared experience. The dreams, identical in every detail, painted a picture too real to ignore. It was as if the town itself was trying to tell them something, to warn them of an impending danger. Their dreams, identical in every detail, painted a picture too real to ignore. Each night they would see the same blinding light, hear the same deafening roar, and feel the same overwhelming sense of dread. It was a shared nightmare that bound them together in fear. A chill ran down their spines each time they closed their eyes. The fear was palpable, a heavy weight that pressed down on their chests and made it hard to breathe. They dreaded the night, knowing that sleep would bring no respite, only more terror. The dream was always the same, a blinding light, a deafening roar, and then silence. The kind of silence that felt alive, that seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. It was a silence that promised something terrible, something that lay just beyond the edge of their understanding. The silence, they would soon learn, was the most terrifying part of all. It was a harbinger of something dark and unknown, a prelude to a nightmare that was about to become all too real. In Oakhaven, the line between dreams and reality was beginning to blur, and the true horror was yet to come. The dream always started the same way. It was as if an unseen hand pressed play on a recurring nightmare, one that each of them knew by heart but could never escape. A bright light, like the sun exploding, filled their vision. It was blinding, overwhelming, and seemed to burn into their very souls, leaving an imprint that lingered long after they awoke. Then came the roar, a cacophony of sound that seemed to tear at the edges of their minds. It was a sound so intense, so all-encompassing, that it felt as though the very fabric of reality was being ripped apart. Each resident, from the baker to the blacksmith, from the children to the elderly, woke with a gasp, their hearts pounding in their chests. The terror was palpable, a shared experience that left them all shaken and disoriented. The dreams were too vivid, too real to dismiss. They were not just figments of their imagination, but something more, something that connected them all in a way they couldn't quite understand. Fear, an unwelcome guest, began to take root in their hearts. It was a fear that grew with each passing night as the dreams became more frequent and more intense. Whispers turned to hushed conversations as the townspeople, united by their shared terror, sought answers in each other's eyes. They gathered in small groups, discussing the dreams in low, urgent tones, trying to make sense of what was happening to them. What did it mean? Was it a premonition, a warning? The questions swirled in their minds, creating a storm of uncertainty and dread. They searched for clues, for any sign that might explain the source of their collective nightmare. No one dared to say it aloud, but the question hung heavy in the air. Was this a glimpse into their future? The possibility was too terrifying to contemplate, yet it was a thought that none of them could escape. They were bound together by their fear and by the haunting question of what lay ahead. Then it happened, just like in their dreams. The blinding light, the deafening roar. The world seemed to crack open, and for a moment everything stood still. When the light subsided and the silence descended, the residents of Oakhaven emerged from their homes, their faces pale, their eyes wide with terror. The town square, usually bustling with life, was eerily deserted. The old oak tree that stood in the centre, a silent sentinel for generations, now lay split in two, its branches scattered like broken bones. The dream had become their reality. The shared experience had bound the residents of Oakhaven together in a way they never could have imagined, but the fear remained, sharper now, fueled by uncertainty. What would come next? The dreams returned, darker this time, laced with a chilling premonition. They spoke of shadowy figures, cloaked and silent, moving through the fog that now clung stubbornly to the town. These figures, the dreams showed, were coming to Oakhaven, and they brought with them an unspeakable evil that threatened to consume everything in its path. The old clock tower, perched atop the highest hill overlooking Oakhaven, had always been a symbol of the town's enduring spirit, but now its shadow seemed to stretch further, darker, as if mirroring the growing dread in the hearts of the townspeople. The dreams grew more frequent, more vivid. The shadowy figures were closer now, their forms solidifying, their intent becoming terrifyingly clear. They were coming for Oakhaven, but why? What did these harbingers of darkness want with their quiet little town? The answer, they knew, lay hidden in the heart of their shared nightmares. Fear had a way of twisting the familiar into the strange. The residents of Oakhaven, once so trusting, now eyed each other with suspicion. Was their neighbour one of them, a cloaked figure hiding in plain sight? The dreams offered no answers, only more questions. They glimpsed faces now, obscured by darkness but undeniably familiar. Were they friends, neighbours, family? The thought sent shivers down their spines. Trust, once the bedrock of their community, crumbled away with each passing night. A palpable tension settled over Oakhaven. The air crackled with anticipation, thick with the unspoken fear that bound them together. The once peaceful town held its breath, bracing for the storm they knew was coming. The dreams had become a shared waking nightmare. They showed the shadowy figures infiltrating the town, their presence heralding a darkness that threatened to consume everything in its path. Each tick of the clock in the tower felt like a hammer blow, counting down to an unknown horror. They were trapped in a nightmare, and the line between dreams and reality had blurred beyond recognition. The townspeople gathered in the town square, their faces drawn and pale under the oppressive sky. They had reached a point of no return. The shadowy figures were no longer confined to their dreams. They moved among them now, their faces hidden, their presence sending shivers down their spines. The air hung heavy with fear, the silence broken only by the frantic beating of their hearts. The storm broke then, a furious torrent of rain and wind that mirrored the turmoil raging within their souls. This was it, the moment they had dreaded, the moment their nightmare became real. The storm raged through the night, a symphony of destruction and despair. Thunder roared like a beast unleashed, and lightning split the sky, illuminating the chaos below. Trees were uprooted, homes were torn apart, and the once peaceful town of Oakhaven was plunged into a nightmare. When dawn finally broke, it revealed a town forever changed. The first light of morning cast long shadows over the wreckage, highlighting the extent of the devastation. The streets, once bustling with life, were now littered with debris and the remnants of what once was. The shadowy figures were gone, vanished as quickly as they had arrived. Their presence, like a dark cloud, had lifted, leaving behind an eerie stillness. The town, now a ghost of its former self, stood in silent testimony to the night's horrors, but Oakhaven was not the same. The buildings, once sturdy and proud, now stood as crumbling ruins. The heart of the town, its spirit, seemed to have been ripped away by the storm's fury. The air, once sweet with the scent of wildflowers, now carried a chilling silence. It was as if the very essence of the town had been altered, replaced by a haunting void that echoed with the memories of what had been lost. The townspeople emerged from their homes, their faces etched with a mixture of relief and trepidation. They moved cautiously, as if afraid that the nightmare might return at any moment. Their eyes scanned the horizon, searching for signs of hope amidst the ruins. The nightmare was over, but the fear lingered, a haunting reminder of the darkness that had touched their lives. They gathered in small groups, whispering among themselves, trying to make sense of the chaos that had descended upon them. What did it all mean? The question hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. The townspeople looked to each other for answers, but found none. The storm had left them with more questions than answers, and a future that seemed more uncertain than ever. And what, they dared to wonder, would become of Oakhaven now? The path ahead was shrouded in mystery, and the once clear future was now a foggy, indistinct vision. They knew they had to rebuild, but the task seemed monumental. The silence held no answers, only the echoes of their shattered peace. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a silence that would linger in their hearts and minds, reminding them of the fragility of their existence and the resilience they would need to move forward.